I'm a Black woman. I'm proud of that. I love it. Thank you. I'm also a woman with disabilities, and I'm proud of that, and I love it. I'm unapologetic about that. Unfortunately, not everyone loves that as much as I love myself. And so I think that's why we're here today, to talk about our narratives and our stories and get an understanding of how sometimes policies don't translate to the real narratives of what we live and exist today. So how can we transition that narrative and make sure that people who are supposed to represent us are actually representing us, right? Right? So part of my story is that I had cancer at the age of 8 years old, and from that I had to get an amputation on my right leg, and I have a prosthetic limb. I also have hearing loss due to the chemotherapy that I took as a child. And so at a young age, I had to start to navigate and understand. I love my Blackness. I love what it means to have a fro and rock it. You know what I'm saying? I see you. I love the culture. I love the slang. I love the way in which we talk and we speak. And there's nothing like having a Black woman's attitude come at you. Right? So I love the way in which that translates, and I bring that as a strength in my organizations because I'm able to talk and understand who we're supposed to be representing. That's a strength that oftentimes gets confused with why you talk like that. Yes, we want to. Because we want to. Because that's who I am. You know what I'm saying? It gets translated into, why are you so aggressive about the way in which you go about things? And I can be aggressive if I want to be aggressive. I can talk the way in which I want to talk. That's the point of today. It's about my culture. It's about who I am, and I can represent that unapologetically. You know what I'm saying? So rock with me on that. But it's interesting because it almost conflicts with my disability narrative as I've grown up. So I've grown up being a person with a disability, and I wasn't always proud of that, right? So navigating throughout society, a lot of people would try to tell me, you know, ain't nothing wrong with you, you good, right? So if you want to run around the park, but I can't. So it's trying to be in a situation where I can tell my story and control my own cans and cannots, and not someone else do that for me, right? And that's what I want to speak into people's narratives today, of how can you speak to the people who are supposed to represent you and represent yourself and not allow them to try to translate and say, this is what your story is, right? So I grew up in a situation where I would wear long pants every single day to cover up and hide my disability. I wouldn't talk about my hearing loss. I wouldn't talk about the accommodation process because I didn't want to be that person who stood out. But that only hurt me more because then when I was in a work and employment situations, it turned into, well, you're not shining, you're not doing the best that you can. And it was because I was afraid to speak up. So I want to be in a position today where I always speak up. Right? I want to be in a position where every single woman in film here has a voice that they know matters, and that you're no longer going to tolerate when a person says, just let that go. Be quiet about that. We've done that too often, too many times. And it's time to make sure that we are always heard, we're always represented, and that it's intersectionally, right? So earlier I saw someone with the intersectional feminist sign, yes, representing that. And that's really important because we don't want to be in a situation that happened a long time ago when we were trying to decide, should the Black vote win or should the women's vote win, right? And because of that, it took us an additional 50 years before women had the right to vote. So me being a Black disabled woman, I was caught in the crossfire. I would have been caught in the crossfire of situations like that. So it's important not only do we represent what it means to be feminists, womanists, and that we represent our narratives, but how can we do that intersectionally and in solidarity with one another, right? So I never want to see a situation where we're saying just in general women, because then what about, the women who are immigrants? What about the women who are disabled bodies? What about all the different ways in which we exist? It's always important to know that we have to come together in a way with solidarity and represent and lift each other. And that's why I'm happy to see everyone here today. So I appreciate your time. I want to just say disability solidarity to each of you. Let's uplift and love one another because it's our duty to win. Thank you.